Have you ever had one of those nights where you shut your laptop, stare at the ceiling, and think, what's the point? I keep trying, but nothing ever works. If that's you, you're not alone. Every person who's ever achieved something meaningful has stood right where you are on the edge of quitting. Let me introduce you to someone. His name is Alex, 29 years old, living in a mid-sized American city, working a 9-to-5 job he doesn't love. The paycheck is fine, but every morning feels like dragging himself through quicksand. Maybe you've had mornings like that too, when the alarm goes off and you already feel tired before the day even begins. Alex had big dreams. He wanted to start his own business, maybe build something that gave him freedom. But here's the catch: he had tried 3 times, and 3 times he failed. Not small setbacks, painful failures. Savings gone, plans in pieces, confidence shattered. And every time, he told himself the same story. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe success isn't for me. Let me pause here and ask you something. Have you ever told yourself something like that? Maybe not those exact words, but something like, I'm not disciplined enough, I don't have the talent, people like me just don't make it. If you have, you're not alone. In fact, if you have, drop a quick yes in the comments, or even just a thumbs up emoji. Because admitting that is the first step to breaking the lie. Back to Alex. Most nights, instead of working on himself, he scrolled. TikTok, Instagram, Netflix, 2 hours gone, then 3. You know how it goes. One video leads to another, one episode turns into 4. By the time he looked up, it was midnight. His dreams were still on hold and the guilt hit hard. The crazy part, he wasn't lazy. At work, he showed up and got things done. But for his own life, his own goals, he was stuck. Isn't that the hardest part? When you can handle responsibilities for everyone else, but you can't keep promises to yourself. Then one night something shifted. Scrolling mindlessly, Alex came across a simple Japanese proverb, just 8 words in English: fall 7 times and stand up 8. At first, he rolled his eyes. Great, another motivational quote. But those words stuck. They echoed in his head: fall 7 times. Stand up 8, fall 7 times, stand up 8. The next morning, brushing his teeth, he looked at his reflection and whispered, what if I stood up one more time? And that's where his story truly begins. Because success doesn't come to the most talented or the smartest. It comes to those who refuse to stay down when life knocks them flat. In the next part, I'll show you exactly how Alex turned this one simple golden rule into a system that rebuilt his confidence step by step. But before we go there, let me ask you, have you ever been at the edge of quitting, on a dream, on a project, maybe even on yourself? If you have, share it in the comments. Not because you need sympathy, but because your story might help someone else feel less alone. After Alex whispered to himself, what if I stood up one more time? He knew he needed something concrete. Not another expensive course, not a vague promise to do better, but a small specific action that could pull him out of the same old cycle. And that action was claiming just 1 hour a day. Alex called it his non-negotiable hour. Every night from 10:30 to 11:30, he shut off notifications, turned away from social media, no Netflix, no TikTok, no endless scrolling, just him, a timer, and the goal he had set. At first, it sounded almost too small. What difference could 1 hour make? But Alex reminded himself, if the world could take 23 hours of his day, he had to fight to keep at least one for himself. The first night was rough. He sat down, opened his laptop, and within 15 minutes his mind was drifting. He grabbed his phone, felt the urge to quit. But then he glanced at the clock, not yet an hour, so he forced himself back. That night he managed a total of 20 minutes of real focus. The rest was a battle with himself. If you've ever tried to start something new, you know that feeling. It's uncomfortable, heavy, frustrating. Have you felt that before, sitting down to work or study and 5 minutes feels like an eternity? If you've been there, type me in the comments because you'll understand exactly what Alex was going through. By day 3, it got a little easier, 30 minutes of focus. By day 7, 45 minutes, and by the end of the month, Alex had 30 hours logged. Think about that, 30 hours. That's 30 episodes of a TV show you skip, or 1,800 minutes of scrolling you refuse. But for Alex, it wasn't lost time, it was investment in a new version of himself. And that's when the truth hit him: if you don't schedule it, you won't do it. How many times have we said, I'll exercise when I have time, I'll study when I feel like it, and that someday never arrives? The difference with Alex was simple. He stopped waiting for someday. He picked 1 hour, locked it in his calendar, and guarded it like it was sacred. Maybe you're thinking, but I'm too busy, I can't hold a fixed hour every day. The real question isn't whether you have time. It's whether you're willing to protect 1 hour for yourself. Think about it, you give hours to work, to deadlines, to other people's demands. Don't you deserve at least one for you? If you agree, type 1 hour in the comments to claim it for yourself. For Alex, that single non-negotiable hour wasn't just about time. It was a declaration. It said, I matter, I'm worth it, and no matter what, I will invest in myself. And from that hour, doors began to open. In the next part, I'll tell you what Alex discovered in week 2, why you should never wait for motivation to strike, and why you must act first to create it. There's a truth Alex had to learn the hard way. Motivation is not the cause, it's the result. For years, he believed, when I feel motivated, then I'll start. But you and I both know that day almost never comes, and if it does, it lasts a couple of hours at best, then disappears. During his second week of the non-negotiable hour, Alex hit one of those tough nights. Work was overwhelming, his boss was short-tempered, customers complained. By the time he got home, he was exhausted. 10:30 rolled around, the clock reminded him it was time, but he stared at his desk and thought, I don't have it in me tonight. I have no energy, no spark. What's the point of forcing it? Still, instead of giving up, he tried something different. He told himself, fine, just 5 minutes, sit down for 5 minutes, open the laptop, skim the notes, nothing fancy. So he did. 5 minutes passed, he typed a few words. 12 minutes later, his brain warmed up. Before he even realized, the full hour had flown by, and that night Alex understood something powerful. Action creates motivation. Motivation doesn't show up first. Action flips the switch and momentum keeps it alive. Have you felt that before? Maybe you didn't want to hit the gym, but once you started stretching, the energy showed up. Or you dreaded opening that assignment, but 10 minutes in, you were in the zone. If that's ever happened to you, drop a quick yes in the comments, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. The problem is that most of us believe the opposite. We sit around waiting for inspiration, scrolling through social media, hoping that someday the lightning bolt will strike. But lightning rarely comes. What actually happens is more like pushing a heavy car. The first shove is brutal, it feels impossible. But once the wheels start rolling, momentum makes it easier. Action is that first push. After that night, Alex created a small rule for himself: never skip the hour just because he didn't feel like it. If he was tired, he'd do less. If he was bored, he'd just read. But skipping altogether was not an option. Strangely enough, the more he honored that rule, the less he felt the absence of motivation, because each small action generated its own spark. And those sparks kept the fire alive. You can try this too. Next time you want to quit, bargain with yourself. Just 5 minutes. That's it. You'll be surprised how often 5 minutes turns into 50, and how much a small beginning can transform an entire evening. Imagine what 30 days of just 5 minutes could add up to. How many hours of progress could you claim if you stopped waiting and started moving? Drop the number you think you could hit in the comments. It might become your first real commitment. For Alex, this was like flipping a light switch in a dark room. He realized he didn't need to wait for motivation. He could create it anytime through action. And once he saw that, he stopped fearing the lack of motivation, because he knew he had the key. And that realization opened the door to another powerful shift. His failures no longer felt like shame. They became proof that he was still in the game. In the next part, I'll show you how Alex turned past failures into fuel, and why every fall can be a stepping stone if you choose to stand back up. Most of us see failure as the end, as proof that we're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. But Alex learned something different. Failure wasn't proof he was useless, it was proof that he tried. In the past, every time he fell, he buried the evidence. He deleted the files, shoved the notes into a drawer, pretending it never happened. But this time, he did the opposite. He opened a blank notebook and wrote it down. Failure number 1, no clear schedule. Failure number 2, tried to do everything alone. Failure number 3, goals were too vague, impossible to measure. He didn't write to punish himself, he wrote to face it. And the more he wrote, the lighter he felt. He realized failure wasn't a death sentence, it was a map. Each mistake pointed to a road he didn't need to walk again. Like the time he tried learning English by himself, silent, never speaking, never practicing. Knowledge stayed in his head but never became skill. Now he knew: find a partner, create an environment, practice out loud. Or the time he told himself, I'll succeed in 1 year, without defining what success meant. Too vague, no specific action. The lesson: goals must be concrete, measurable. Slowly, failure became less of a scar and more like a metal, proof he had stepped into the arena while others only dreamed. Let me ask you, have you ever written down your failures instead of hiding them? Have you faced them head on and asked, what lesson is here for me? If you've done that, drop a yes in the comments. If not, maybe this is the time to try. For Alex, failure became a kind of curriculum, each setback another class completed. The more he failed, the richer his education. And suddenly he saw failure as a teacher, strict but fair. Each time he thought, what if I fail again? He answered himself, then I'll get another lesson. And that lesson will fuel the next attempt. That shift changed everything. He stopped fearing failure. He welcomed it because he knew progress wasn't about never falling, it was about falling in new ways, learning new things, and standing up stronger. That's why the third golden rule was clear: every failure is proof you showed up. If you don't risk failing, you'll never grow. You'll stay safe, but you'll stay stuck. So think about your last failure. What did it teach you? Could you write it down, not as shame, but as a note in your personal textbook? If you're willing, share one short lesson in the comments. Your story might just be the one someone else needs to hear. For Alex, this mindset shift turned his failures from heavy weights into stepping stones. And with that new energy, he was ready for the breakthrough that came next. In the following part, you'll see how 30 days of applying these 3 golden rules transformed not only his skills, but his confidence, his work, and his life. 30 days passed since the night Alex whispered, "What if I stood up one more time?" A month may not sound like much, but for him, it felt like stepping into a whole new life. Imagine someone who used to waste hours every evening on his phone, someone haunted by failure, someone who didn't believe he could change. After 30 days, he was different. On the 30th night, Alex flipped through his notebook where he tracked his journey. The pages told the story: Day 1, 20 minutes of focus. Day 7, 45 minutes. Day 15, a full hour. Day 30, 30 hours logged, 30 hours of showing up, 30 hours that didn't exist before, and he realized he wasn't the same man anymore. The change wasn't only in the numbers, it was in the way he felt. At work, in meetings with international clients, Alex used to sit silently, terrified of speaking. But now, when a client asked him a question, he didn't shrink. Took a breath and answered, not perfectly, but clearly enough to be understood, and nobody laughed. In fact, a colleague leaned over and whispered, "Good job, man." That small moment hit him harder than any motivational speech. He saw with his own eyes, the biggest barrier was never skill, it was fear. Think about your own life. When was the last time you felt proud of yourself? Not because someone else praised you, but because you looked in the mirror and thought, "I actually did it." If you remember, share that moment in the comments. It might spark someone else to chase their own. After 30 days, Alex realized these 3 golden rules weren't just about learning English or building a new skill. They reshaped his entire mindset. The non-negotiable hour showed him the power of small, daily discipline. Acting first taught him that motivation comes later. And turning failure into proof freed him from shame. Together, these rules built a new Alex, more confident, stronger, and no longer seeing quitting as an option. Now let me ask you, do you believe you could transform in 30 days? What if just a month from now you weren't the same person? Picture this: in 30 days you could speak your first sentence in a new language. In 6 months you could finish the project you've been putting off. In a year you could look back and say, "Look how far I've come." And it all starts with one choice. Don't give up this time. Alex knew he wasn't perfect. He still had bad days, he still felt tired sometimes. But the difference was that now he had a system, a mindset, and the proof that he could stand back up. And that made him unstoppable. In the next part, I'll take you deeper into what Alex discovered about failure, not just as a lesson, but as a measure of growth and the source of real inner strength. After his 30-day breakthrough, Alex started reflecting more deeply on everything he had gone through. He asked himself, why has failure haunted me so much? Why does just the thought of failing make me so afraid? And then it hit him: all these years he had been giving failure the wrong meaning. He used to believe failure was proof that he wasn't good enough. But the truth was simpler. Failure was just feedback. It was a mirror showing him what wasn't working. Think about it like playing a video game. You lose one round. Does that mean you're terrible at the game, or does it just mean you haven't found the right strategy yet? Life works the same way. Each failure doesn't define you, it only defines the method you used. So Alex began to shift his perspective. He wrote in his notebook, "Failure is not a verdict, it's a temporary test. Failure doesn't lower my value, it just points to where I need more practice. Failure is not the end of the road, it's simply a mile marker along the journey." Most importantly, he realized failure proved he was in the arena while others stayed on the sidelines. Let me ask you something. How many times have you held back from doing something because you were afraid to fail? How many chances have you missed just to feel safe? Be honest with yourself. And if you're brave, share one example in the comments. Your story might help someone else decide to take their shot. For Alex, failure became a kind of certificate. Each stumble was like completing another course in the school of life. The more he failed, the more experienced he became. And isn't that the truth? Successful people aren't the ones who have never failed. They're the ones with the longest list of failures and the courage to learn from each one. Once Alex stopped resenting failure, the weight lifted off his shoulders. No more pressure to be perfect. No more anxiety about what if I mess up. He gave himself permission to make mistakes as long as he promised to stand up again. Think about your own story. What if you looked back at every failure you've had and asked, if I didn't go through this, what lesson would I be missing? You might realize failure taught you patience, resilience, or how to be authentic. From then on, Alex treated failure like a tough but fair teacher. Each time he fell, he asked, what's the lesson here? How do I use this to rise higher? And this became his greatest inner strength. Because when you accept failure as a natural part of growth, you become unstoppable. No fall can keep you down for good. Part 6 ends here with failure redefined as not a burden but a measure of progress and a valuable companion on the journey. In the next part, you'll see how Alex used this energy to rebuild not just his work life, but also his confidence, his relationships, and his sense of freedom. Once Alex changed the way he looked at failure, the ripple effects began to show everywhere. It wasn't just about his non-negotiable hour anymore. It was about his work, his confidence, and even the way he connected with people. He realized something powerful. When you change how you see yourself, the world around you starts to change too. At work, Alex used to shrink in meetings, especially when international clients were present. The fear of saying something wrong kept him silent. But after 30 days of discipline, he tried something different. When a client asked, "Can you explain this proposal?" His heart pounded, but this time he didn't avoid it. He took a deep breath and answered slowly, not perfect but clear. And to his surprise, nobody laughed. Instead, one coworker leaned over and whispered, "Good job, man." That simple nod of encouragement showed him the barrier had never been his ability, it had always been fear. Have you ever had a moment like that? A time when you finally spoke up or took a chance and realized it wasn't as scary as you imagined? If you have, drop a "I get it" in the comments. Outside of work, Alex began to rebuild his self-belief. In the past, he avoided setting big goals because the memory of old failures haunted him. But now, those failures felt like assets, not scars. He wrote down a new target. In 6 months, I'll be confident enough to give a presentation in English to my team. This wasn't a wish anymore. It was a concrete plan backed by his system, 1 hour a day, consistent action, and lessons learned from every stumble. Then something unexpected happened. His relationships started shifting too. Before, Alex kept his failures hidden, embarrassed to talk about them. But now he spoke openly. "Yeah, I failed 3 times, but here's what I learned." Instead of losing respect, he gained it. Friends started asking, "How do you keep that 1 hour? Can you show me how?" And Alex realized something important. His personal story was inspiring others. You see, when you change yourself, you create a ripple effect. When you decide to stand up one more time, you unconsciously invite others to do the same. So let me ask you, if your best friend was about to give up, what's the one sentence you would say to them? Write it in the comments, because that one line might be exactly what someone else here needs to hear. Over the following months, Alex didn't just sharpen his skills, he became a different man. More confident, calmer, and no longer afraid of setbacks. He summed it up perfectly when he said, "I don't need to prove I'm perfect, I just need to prove I won't quit." And that simple shift gave him a freedom he had never felt before. Part 7 ends here with Alex rebuilding his life piece by piece. In the final part, I'll leave you with the strongest reminder of all, the golden rule to never give up, and a challenge to make this story your own. As we reach the end of Alex's story, here's what you need to remember. He wasn't a genius, he didn't have a perfect plan, and he didn't discover some magical secret. The only thing he did was stand up one more time, and that truth applies to you too. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You don't need to be the richest, the fastest, or the most talented. You just need to be the one who refuses to quit. Remember the old proverb, fall 7 times. Stand up 8, it doesn't matter how many times you've fallen. What matters is whether you're willing to stand up again. So let's recap the golden lessons from this journey. 1. Protecting just one non-negotiable hour each day can rewrite your future. 2. Don't wait for motivation, it comes after action. And 3. Every failure you've had isn't proof that you're broken, it's proof that you showed up. These aren't fancy ideas, they're real, tested truths from Alex's life. And they can be yours if you start today. Imagine where you could be in 30 days if you committed. In 6 months, you might be in a better job, finally mastering a skill, or simply feeling proud when you look in the mirror. In a year, you might be telling your own story of how you refuse to give up. The only thing that stands in your way is the choice to quit. Maybe right now you feel tired. Maybe you failed so many times your confidence feels empty. But I want you to ask yourself one question. What if I stood up one more time? That's it, just one more time. Because even if the next attempt isn't the final victory, it will get you closer than staying down ever will. So here's my challenge to you. If this story resonated, do 3 small things right now. First, type "never give up" in the comments. That's your public commitment, your way of drawing a line in the sand. Second, share this with someone you know who's struggling. That link might be the spark they need. And third, subscribe, because this journey doesn't end here. There are more tools, more stories, more lessons to help you rise. Alex put it best: I don't need to prove I'm perfect, I just need to prove I won't quit. And I want to leave you with that. You don't have to be flawless, you don't have to have all the answers, you just need to never give up.